Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dishing with Stephanie's Dish. I'm Stephanie Hansen. You are here at the podcast that talks to foodies, cookbook writers, and today we have, I would say, all three plus more. We have Rebecca Blackwell. She is a recipe developer. She is on the verge of releasing her Let's Get Lost, the cookbook. She is a Substack writer who has a Substack newsletter called Let's Get Lost. She also is starting and launching the Lost Supper Club and has been out in the space. One of the things about Rebecca that intrigues me, not the most, because you're just a nice person, but beyond that, you live in an RV. You kind of upended your life, sold your worldly possessions, and bought a pull behind. And you and your husband travel all over the United States in your RV. We are talking right now in your RV, which I know you've got a good cookbook shelf. I see it behind you. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. So, for people that maybe aren't familiar with your story, can you talk about how you decided to just chuck it all and get into the RV?
Yeah, absolutely. We had three children, and when our youngest was about 7, we decided that we wanted to work towards getting to the place where we could work from anywhere in the world by the time all of our kids were graduated. And so our youngest was getting ready to go off to college in 2019, and we had done it. We were both working virtually, and we could work anywhere where there was an internet connection. And so our initial plan was that we were gonna just rent Airbnbs in various places for, 3 months or 6 months or whatever at a time. So some friends of ours in Southern California were heading off to Europe for a couple of months and asked us to come house sit. And we were like, great, this will be a great test run for how this works. And we loved living and working in a new place, but we hated living in somebody else's home. And so we weren't sure what we were going to do about that. And we met up with some old high school friends while we were there that lived in an RV. And it was like the answer to all of our problems. We had never considered living in an RV. We had never in our entire lives spent one night in any kind of a camper of any kind. We're just not the camping kind of people. But we went home from that trip, and within 5 months, we had sold our house and bought a fifth wheel RV and moved ourselves into it. So the first night we ever spent in a camper, we had already sold the house and bought our RV. And
That's
that it's
so
been almost
brave.
five years.
Did you feel brave doing it at the time?
It just felt very exciting until the night we closed on our house. And then I got a little freaked out. I was like,
Understandably.
what have I done? But the first night we lived in Colorado, and we closed on our house on a Monday, and we drove to Katy, Texas to pick up the RV on a Tuesday, and picked it up on Wednesday. And that first night in the camper, I wasn't worried at all. It instantly felt like the right decision. We felt at home in it almost immediately. And we really haven't looked back. We say that we'll keep doing it until we get tired of doing it, but so far, it's been almost 5 years and we're not anywhere close to being ready to stop. So,
What I think is kind of hilarious about you in particular is you have this sort of idea of who might be in an RV park, and I've been in a lot of RV parks.
yeah.
And I don't know about your husband, but for sure you are like this type A, organized, hyper productive person who's doing all this work from an RV park. I mean, your Substack newsletter alone with Let's Get Lost kind of focuses on the RV living aspects and the travel aspects, but also recipes. And then, as if that wasn't enough, you've launched the Lost Supper Club that just launched. What made you decide you needed yet another outlet? Because you just seem super prolific.
Yeah. Well, ask me at the end of the year if I regret adding another thing, and I'll let you know. But really at the end of last year, I was just looking for more ways to connect with people on a more meaningful way as we travel around. We love being in a new place and kind of immersing ourselves in the culture of the place as much as we can. And we have met people without even trying all over the country, and that's been really fun. But this last year, I was just thinking a lot about how when we're in a new place, when I have the opportunity to spend a few hours with somebody that lives there, it just enriches both of our lives in a really meaningful way. And so I thought, well, with the Lost Supper Club, if I can do that and then write about it, then maybe I could also inspire other people to get together with friends over dinner on a more regular basis. I feel like it's kind of a lost art that and we're just craving that in-person connection. Everywhere I go, I talk to people about this, and everybody seems to be craving that in-person connection, but they're not really sure how to go about starting it. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do is by doing it myself and writing about it, inspire more people to do the same thing.
I think food too is so common in that everyone speaks the same language when it comes to food.
That's right.
No matter what you eat, whether what you prepare, it has a way of bringing people together. And one of the things that you and I have talked about offline is how challenging, when you're a nomad, we'll call it, it's
Yeah.
challenging to keep up those relationships with friends and
Yeah.
family because they don't know where you are and you can't just, have your weekly tennis date.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's been a big challenge with our friends back home in Colorado is maintaining those relationships with some of our closest friends. Thankfully, we tend to attract the kind of friends that are also similar in that they're very independent. They travel all over the place. And so it's pretty easy to just pick up where we left off. But I'm starting to become a little more conscious of trying to do things like phone calls and just text messages and just reaching out in any way I can to some of these relationships while we're on the road because they are important. They're those connections that we form with people that become lifelong friends. It's one of the most valuable things in my life. The older I get, the more I realize how deeply important they are.
Us also, like, I'm curious what your thoughts are because I don't know your husband at all. But my husband has a small group of friends, and they're the same friends he's had since like the sixth grade.
Oh, wow.
And I am like someone that craves a lot of friends, a lot of different types of people. Everyone I meet becomes my friend. Like we
Yes.
just have different needs. I'm an extrovert, he's an introvert, like how to fill our buckets. Would you say you're more introverted, or is your husband like on the same page with you, or do you spend a lot of time forging connections?
Yeah, so both of us have a strong tendency to just keep to ourselves and hole ourselves away. And that's part of the more concentrated effort on my part of reaching out to more people and making those connections because if it's not deliberate, we won't do it. We're very happy parking ourselves in the middle of nowhere for months at a time and not really talking to anybody except each other.
Oh my God, that's horrifying to me.
We love it. We love it. We love it. But that, like, no matter how introverted you tend to be, those connections with other people are just important. And so, my husband's a little worried about how many social activities I have planned for us this year because he gets really worn out by it. But also when he's there, he has a good time and he knows that it's good for him as well. So we'll see. At the end of the year, we'll take stock and see if it was too much for us or
Yeah.
not.
So let's get lost details. It's your newsletter on Substack that details all the places that you are and what you're cooking along the way. The
Yeah,
Lost Supper Club is the new paid version of Substack that
correct.
you will belong to this club. You'll talk about ways to entertain. You'll share recipes. In your January edition, you did a really nice overview of homemade pasta
Yes,
that I
yes.
loved because I just filmed a TV show about pasta and I made pasta myself at home for the first time.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so it was really fun to read your recipe and your techniques. And then the Let's Get Lost, the cookbook, is on the verge of coming. So tell me where you're at with that and when we'll be able to get our hands on it.
Yeah, so that should be out the last week of this month, January, the last week of January. And there'll be links on RebeccaBlackwell.com and on both of my blogs. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. It's 150 140 something recipes, 135-page cookbook, full color photos of every recipe. And it wasn't a book I had intended to write last year. I was publishing so many recipes on Substack that I thought, I'm just going to throw these together into like a quick little downloadable book. And then it turned into a full blown cookbook. So,
So, how do you
um,
do it? Are you printing on demand? Because you're obviously not warehousing things in your RV.
exactly. Yeah, no. Yeah, we're printing on demand. So it'll be available on print and downloadable PDF and Kindle. So three different options for that. And then I'm already started on volume two. So this year's volume two will be focused more on Supper Club, and it'll be organized by the areas that we've traveled to. So Southern California, Louisiana, the Midwest. There's a
Love.
there's a whole, yeah. And it'll include other people's recipes as well. So as we travel around and cook and have dinner with other people, they will contribute recipes to the book. So it'll be more of a collaborative effort.
Oh gosh, I just love it. You're so prolific. You were a marketer in your other life before getting into the RV and kind of branching off and doing your own freelance. What did you market?
Yeah, so I mostly worked with businesses who wanted to improve their online strategies. So I put together very comprehensive strategies for them that included, a lot of different factors. And I did a lot of writing, wrote a lot of websites, a lot of emails, a lot of blog posts. I was the ghostwriter for quite a few companies' blog posts over the years. So back in 2013, I thought maybe I'd like to do this for myself, and that's when I started my first blog. And then gradually I started, as the blog grew, I was able to let go of some clients on a very gradual basis and was finally full time with food blogging by 2020.
That's so exciting. When you're in your RV and you're like making a recipe,
Yeah.
do you find space as a limitation or how do you get like the perfect photograph? And have you had to adapt?
Yeah, yeah, that has been a big adaptation in our house before we sold it and moved into the RV. I had a whole room just for photography, and that was amazing. But I have discovered that there's really nothing that you can't do in a small space. If you have, it's like money. If however much you have, you seem to need it
Yeah.
all. And that's how space is. I think however much you have, you figure out a way to need it all, but you don't actually need it all. So for an RV kitchen, mine is much nicer and much bigger than a lot of RVs. As we were looking towards buying an RV, we looked at, I don't know, 100 different models and found one where the kitchen would work for me. Um, and it hasn't limited what I've been able to do really at all, which has been really nice. And then photography, I just use these like 24-inch photography boards, and
Yeah.
some of them you would never know that it's a board, even though it's this small little board. The cover of the cookbook has a window in the background, the cover photo. And people are shocked to know that that's not a window, that it's just a board that I
Yeah.
set up on my kitchen table.
And create like a little good light and there you go.
Exactly, exactly. Artificial lighting for photography has been a game changer for me because relying on how the light comes in and what time of day it is and where we are in the world and what the weather is doing, and all of those things affect it. And so that's been really important to use artificial lighting in the RV.
One thing I'm curious about, I feel like travel and being in new spaces and meeting new people, I feel like that so like inspires creativity and gets you sort of out of your day-to-day existence. Does that persist when you're like your day-to-day existence is all those things? So I'm just curious, like I'm wondering how it is that you like ground yourself when everything around you is changing, or is that just a constant source of inspiration? Like food, like
Yeah.
the ingredients, everything is different everywhere you go.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. That's interesting. I just started listening to a book that's talking about the difference between it's mostly focused on anxiety and the difference between right brain and left brain functionality. And our right brain is really where our creativity lies. And the more stressed out and anxious we are, the more it shuts down creativity, it, like just closes that part off of us. And I feel like as we travel around, I can identify how when we get into a new place, the more I'm able to just be present in that place and appreciate the experience of being there, the more I can feel that creativity opening up and just relaxing my mind enough to like really see where are we and what is this place like, and that just brings forth a whole bunch of new ideas. And then
What's
also,
the book?
I
Do you know?
um oh yeah, it's Martha Beck,
Okay.
and I don't remember the title, but it's her newest one, and there's the word anxiety in the title. It's
I'll
highly
find it
recommended.
and just
It's
put it in the show notes in case
it's
anyone's
very
interested.
good. Yeah, because she has this idea that we can use our creative mind to calm stress and anxiety in our lives, and I love that idea. So, and before we moved into the RV, I could have, shopped at the same places and I could have very distinct ideas and just go to the grocery store and get them. And now I have to show up with a very loose idea of what I want because you never know. You never know what's going to be there.
Yeah, and that
It's
just
also been a creative, I think a creative boost to not be so rigid in that thinking.
Yeah, I love that idea. Also, I think for we're in this kind of weird political place where everybody's very polarized in their
Yeah,
silos, and you're either all this or you're all that, and there's very little
right.
nuance. One thing
That's
I
right.
found about traveling that really helped me a lot is this idea that wherever you are in an RV park, like
Yep.
whether you're alone or you're with others, everybody's kind of there for the same things.
That's right.
You might
That's right.
approach them differently, like your political flag might fly differently, but
Yep.
at the end of the day, they're sitting out there at their campfire, you're sitting out at your campfire. It doesn't hurt you to kind of go over and introduce yourself and share a beer or a glass of wine. And I just felt so appreciative that I had that experience because when I'm in a dark place and I'm feeling like I'm alone in my own silo, I remember that, oh no, there's all these other people out there and we kind of get to it a different way, but we want security for our family. We want to have jobs that are meaningful. We want to love and be able to be, in a place that's beautiful. That really helped me have a lot of empathy for people that weren't like me.
Yeah, I agree completely. We had this one experience a couple of years ago where we were talking to a couple in our campground, and he got on a tangent of all sorts of political ideas, and we just stood there listening, and I didn't agree with pretty much anything he was saying. And at the end of it, I just said, I didn't actually agree with anything that you just said, but one thing that I've learned is that there are good people everywhere, even if they think differently from me. And so then we ended up talking about that. And that I I have strong opinions about a lot of things, and so the more I meet people that don't share that same perspective, the better it is for me. The better it is for my state of mind. I can get very pigeonholed into thinking that the world is a dark place. And then when I'm out in it and actually meeting the people that live in all of these places, it's a solid reminder that it's not a dark place. Most people are very generous and very kind and very friendly. And in every state, that's true.
Yeah.
We have states that we enjoy more than others, but we have found good people and beautiful places pretty much everywhere.
That is like the moral of the story, isn't it? Like right what you just said. And it's why I love sailing, I love RVing, I love going to Europe, I love traveling. And,
Yes,
I'm fortunate in that I have some reserves to do that, but you can just travel to your state park down the road and
that's
just
right.
really explore it in your car and sleep in your car and meet so many different people. And I
Right.
didn't sleep in a tent for Well, honestly, I've only slept in a tent like probably twice because I've either had an RV or a cabin but it is a very eye-opening experience to just put yourself out there and the people that you meet. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited about your Lost, not the Let's Get Lost. I'm excited about the Lost Supper Club because in the Midwest, as you know, supper clubs are such a big deal here.
Yes, I know. So that I didn't know anything about supper clubs until we visited the Midwest. And then I was like, well, this is cool. I
Yeah, and
like
some of
this
them are
idea.
there's sort of older, folksier, but then there's others that are more modern now, and we're kind of getting back to seeing fancy relish trays and fancy high-end restaurants. And just the idea of the supper club being like a place where you gather on a Friday or Saturday night, and it can be
Yes.
with friends, and it doesn't have to be at a restaurant all the time, and it certainly does not have to always be steak.
That's right. Well, and in the South, if you say supper club, people don't even realize that you're talking about an establishment. Supper clubs are a group of friends that get together on a regular basis. They're very organized, and um, we we met some friends in Louisiana a few years ago. We're going to do a supper club at her place this year, but she invited us to her home for dinner, and that's what it was. It was a supper club, and the table was tablescaped, and the china was out, and the
Nice.
everybody was in their Sunday best. And I mean, like it was an amazing dinner, an amazing event. And she just does that all the time. It's just a normal part of life to have
So
these
fun.
amazing dinner parties with groups of people gathered around her table. And so that's more what it is in the South. So there's a lot of options and a lot of variety for people to kind of create more community over food. And honestly, there's something about humans where if we're going to get together with people, we want there to be food.
Yeah. Yes. Hot tea does not do it. You got to have a scone or a biscuit or something else.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I'm going to go ahead and put links to all the ways that people can connect with you in this podcast episode. You can pre-order the book now. We will provide a link in the show notes. Rebecca Blackwell, thank you for being our guest today. It was super fun to just chat with you. I think it's funny too, the cookbooks behind you that made it on the RV list. You have probably like 30, way more than I would have thought.
I have another 30 in our bedroom.
Okay, so do you read cookbooks like you read novels?
Yes.
Same. Like at night when
Yes.
I'm in bed, I'm like reading a cookbook, not necessarily a book, as it were.
Yes. Well, and I'm starting to order more on Kindle because, I only have so much space
Yeah,
and I don't love the Kindle cookbooks as much. I love having a book in my hands, but
same.
I can't stop buying them, so
Yeah,
something has
yeah, you gotta make do where you can. Well, it was
That's
great to
right.
chat with you. Like I
Thank you
said,
so
I'll have
much.
all the links for everything in the show notes here, and good luck. And I can't wait to connect with you next year after you've had this whole year of creativity behind you to see where it goes.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Rebecca. We'll talk soon.